this is going to be my review of Superman Savage Dragon Chicago. Now, Superman Savage Dragon Chicago is pretty much a crossover between DC and Image. Yeah, they didn't do a lot together, DC and Image. But the story is... Well, actually, no, the story is written by Eric Lawson, and also he does the artwork for this comic book. And I'll say right off the bat, okay, yes, I know Eric Lawson is the creator and writer and main artist for Superman, for Savage Dragon. But however, in terms of Superman characters, he doesn't make the best looking Superman characters. I mean, Lois Lane, her eyes are always huge and look like anime eyes. Superman's very disproportionate in various places. But again, I'm not knocking the guy. I just don't think he's, he doesn't draw the best Superman. I mean, yeah, Savage Dragon, that's a given because that's his character and that's how he draws them. But in terms of, I wouldn't have him as a main Superman artist for the most part. I'm not saying he's a terrible artist. I mean, yeah, I've seen him actually do good artwork. I'm just saying him drawing Superman isn't one of his strong suits, but that's just my opinion. Now, anyway, the story pretty much begins, it hits the ground running of a majority of Superman's enemies breaking out of prison and Superman trying to stop them, but eventually they run away, and he gets reports that they've come to Chicago for some unknown reason. While this is going on, we have Savage Dragon, who is not too thrilled on the idea of Superman coming to Chicago, because he is very much against Superman. In the fact that he doesn't, he thinks Superman's this just all-important Boy Scout, just cares for himself, and he just leaves he leaves all the real dirty work for the cops, because even though Savage Dragon is a hero, yeah, I know in the recent comics that's changed, but Savage Dragon in the past was a cop through and through. He may have had superpowers, but he still thought of himself as a police officer, and in that regard, he kind of didn't really regard Superman that very high. And when a lot of Superman's villains come to Chicago, he's like, oh yeah, he's just here to clean up the mess, and then he'll go and leave us with all the crime and the gang vicious circle. While this is also going on, we have, I almost said Iron Man, I can't believe that. We have Lex Luthor regaining one of again, I almost said Iron Man, we basically have Lex Luthor finding the Overlord armor. Overlord, for those who don't know, was Savage Dragon's archenemy for a while before Savage Dragon killed him in a fight. And he's basically using Luthor is using the the Overlord armor as a way to get control of Vicious Circle, the superpowered gang in Chicago. And while this is going on, we get some interesting dialogue there is some interesting dialogue of Superman trying to convince Savage Dragon that they're on the same side, and it is interesting. Some of the writing is good. I mean, again, it kind of wraps up quickly, but however, I do know that there is a sequel where Savage Dragon comes to Metropolis, and I haven't read that one yet. I've only read this one. And also, there's a cover by Alex Ross. And by the way, this is not one of Alex Ross's strong suits in terms of covers, because I think he literally copied, Savage Dragon's... If you've ever seen the cover, it's an Alex Ross cover of Savage Dragon charging with Superman overhead, and the pose he has for Savage Dragon, it literally looks exactly like the pose he was taking on Savage Dragon #1. So I feel like, did he just trace that? Did Alex Ross just trace that? Huh. And it does look like, some of the ink look very blotchy here and there, so it's not one of... Alex Ross, don't get me wrong, Alex Ross is an amazing artist, but... However, I don't think this was one of his better ones, in my opinion. This was one of his better artworks. But the interior art's done by Eric Lawson as well, and like I said, I wouldn't suggest him for being on Superman artwork a lot. But in terms of this, I mean, yeah, he didn't, at least he's not writing Superman consistently, and I can forgive that. The writing is good. I do enjoy the dialogue between Superman and Savage Dragon, but one thing kind of perplexes me, and maybe I just missed it, maybe it's just me, but while I was reading this, a majority of Superman's villains get to Chicago and they join Vicious Circle, and then later on, when Superman comes across all of his villains along with Savage Dragon's enemies together, they find out they're a bunch of robots, and they only just needed Parasite for, their grand scheme involving another Savage Dragon villain known as Cyberface. And I'm thinking to myself, then what was the point of having all of Superman's rogues if you just wanted, if you're just going to make robot copies of them, and what was the point of having them all together? I mean, you could have just made robot duplicates and then just had, robot duplicates to confuse Superman and just have Parasite. Why not just take Parasite? I think that would have been suffice enough, but, whatever. But in all honesty, I do like this comic. It does have its weak points here and there, but in terms of a one-shot, I think it does pretty well. And it comes off like a Marvel team, those how typical team-ups are. It's like, oh yeah, we don't really like each other that much. But then by the end of the comic, till we meet again, my friend. It's one of those kind of stories. But yeah, that's really all I have to say for this one. If you can find it, again, this is one of the things I found in a dollar bin, and that's pretty much, that's where I'd suggest to get it. And yeah, but for what it's worth, if you are a fan of Superman, on the other hand, artwork aside, and I know Eric Lawson is a good artist, with his stuff, but again, Superman looks very disproportionate, and some of the characters from the DC universe look very goofy, but other than that, yeah, I'd suggest picking it up. The writing's good, I do like the action in here, and I just love the interaction, because Superman and Savage Dragon just are two different characters. And I was wondering, because I heard there was supposed to be a Savage Dragon Batman crossover that never happened, that Larson wanted to do as well. And I think that would have been interesting to see Batman and Savage Dragon together more than Superman and Savage Dragon, because Savage Dragon's a police officer, and I think he would have also had the same kind of contempt for Batman, saying, oh yeah, he's a vigilante, and, he leaves, all the real crime fighting, he leaves all the dirty work for us cops, but he gets to run around in a cloak and stuff. But again, I can actually see, because Superman, I think it makes, now that I think about it, Superman, why they wanted to do Superman and Savage Dragon together was because Superman's this guy, Truth, Justice, the American Way, and, this also kind of regards those, those Superman stereotypes of like, oh yeah, you're so good, you're so cool, you're so lame, basically, was what I'm trying to say. I'm tongue-tied, and again, I'm very scatterbrained at the moment, but I've got a sinus infection, and it's driving me nuts, so forgive me on that part. So, anyway, again, I liked it, but that's just me. Opinions may vary. But anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'm out.